Hello, creeps. It's me, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper, and you're listening to Chronicles from the Crypt.
Hello there, I'm Casualty Chris.
And this is Father Malone.
And we are the hosts of Chronicles from the Crypt, a twice-a-month look at the cult horror anthology series, Tales from the Crypt, that originally aired on HBO from 1989 to 1996. Now, before you check the title of this podcast again, yes, we are talking about Creepshow, the recently revived series based on the film, the amazing film, the first film, not the second, and definitely not the third, which most of you may just have realized now that was a thing, the original film from 1982. So we're going to be covering that series in its entirety as a little bonus to you, our faithful listener, and to join us in that journey into the land of hopefully good Shudder Creepshow, our friend, award-winning screamwriter, and yes, I can use it on this podcast because there's puns, Jess Byard.
Hello.
I've been waiting for you to be on here.
On the pun.
I've been waiting for you to be on here so I could say that, because I posted it on Facebook a while ago, but I wanted to use it like in an actual podcast setting. So, so I think before we get started on talking about the first episode of Creepshow, we should probably talk a little bit about kind of our exposure to the original film from 82. So, Jess, since you are our guest, what is your feelings towards the original Creepshow movie from 1982?
Creepshow, I mean, we've talked a lot about, the three of us have talked a lot about this movie off the air just because we wanted to do this podcast, and we're not probably going to actually do a full episode on the movie. But Creepshow is probably... well, maybe
I wouldn't make an assumption here.
Yeah, don't assume that.
Creepshow is like damn near a perfect movie to me. I love anthology films, especially horror anthologies. It's a genre, it's like a subgenre that has been pretty much in existence since horror became a thing. And the art, like the ability to put together the right kind of stories that fit a certain mood, that fit a certain time, it is an art form. You have to consider so much else than having one story that you're following continuously. You have to keep the audience engaged through multiple stories. You have to be able to segue those stories well that makes sense and is engaging and adds its own element to the story. And I think that Stephen King and George Romero coming together on that movie was probably one of those instances in movie magic where it's just the right people hit at the right time and you get Creepshow. I like Creepshow 2 as well. I know I'm in the minority, that's fine. But Creepshow, the original, is just, it's a masterpiece. Everything about it pops off the screen. Everything about it is just all of the talent. For me, where that movie really excels is it hits every like horror beat perfectly. And it's fueled by these classically trained actors in some cases, whether they're theater actors or they're just seasoned film actors, whatever. You have a fantastic cast that is giving it all they have in every single one of the segments, no matter how ridiculous or, off the wall it is. All of these actors came together and made a fantastic... It's just, like I said, it's the right amount, it's the right people, right time, everything happened perfectly.
What about you, Father Malone?
Oh, where do I begin? Okay, so 1982, I was 9 years old. Now, before I knew that there was a movie coming out, there was a chain of kind of like Target of its day in Massachusetts called Almies, and they had a book and magazine section that my mother would just deposit me at while she was shopping. And I actually found I guess it's a novelization, not technically, it's a comic bookization of Creepshow that was done by Bernie Wrightson. And I read the whole thing just sitting there waiting, and I was completely amazed by it. And then, of course, on the back it says now a major motion picture. So I had to wait a few months before it came out, but I insisted, even though every adult said, do not take him to see this movie. I actually saw Creepshow in the theater. And I got to say, there's I over the years have purchased every iteration of the Creepshow poster. I have all of them. The one piece of promotion that I wish I had at the time, they did a standee in the theater, and it was a cardboard version of the crate, and it just said, "What's inside the Creepshow crate?" So there's a little too much information, but this was my first introduction to Creepshow. And like you, Jess, I think it is, in fact, a perfect movie. It is absolutely lightning in a bottle that you got two absolute giants in horror at the top of their game who found a common ground to come together, and a common ground in this case being their love of EC Comics, which is what this show is all about. And I think their take on it is absolutely spectacular. And Chris, you and I have talked about this a lot, about sometimes you read a screenplay and it's as boring as fuck, but if you read the screenplay for Creepshow, it is entertaining as all get out, and you can see how much King loves EC Comics. And he kind of clearly sat down and went, okay, what kind of stories did EC traffic in? Let's do one of those and one of these and one of these, and he adapted a couple of his short stories for it. But they were perfectly in keeping with the EC tradition, as it were. I do not. Creepshow 2, I also saw in the theater. I was massively disappointed by it as a kid, but it's grown in my estimation over the years. It's got a lot of problems, but it's certainly not as bad as Creepshow 3, which is utter and total garbage. There.
Maybe, I don't even know if I actually got to an actual segment in that one or not, or if I just got through maybe the first half of the wraparound. But yeah, that movie's trash. It's horrible trash.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where clearly like a guy wrote a horror anthology and then got in touch with people who owned the rights to Creepshow and allowed them to do it. When Creepshow was being made, they initially, they were shopping it around. It ended up at Warner Brothers, who let them do what they want. But initially, they almost had a deal at Paramount. But Paramount's idea was, okay, we'll let you do this. We'll give you the budget. We'll give you whatever you want. But it has to be the Twilight Zone because we own the rights to the Twilight Zone. And Creepshow 3 smacks of somebody accepting that particular deal, whereas King and Romero were like, no, we're doing our own thing.
Which, thank God.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what is your first introduction to Creepshow? Hello?
Hi. Sorry, I was just racking my memory. So I have only seen Creepshow once.
Oh, Jesus.
Sorry, cool your jets, as my dad would say, or calm your horses, as my mom would say. I have
calm your liver. That's what we used to say.
Is that a colloquialism for something?
No, that's a Boston thing for just calm the fuck down, but calm your liver. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from. Whatever.
Is that like drinking an egg cream or some shit? Sorry.
Calm your liver.
Calm your liver. I've only seen it once, and I remember liking it. I mean, look, it has Hal Holbrook in the crate, which is, I think, if I remember correctly, my favorite story from the movie. Hal Holbrook is in a lot of great films. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, okay, Fletch lives. Yeah, we get it.
Sorry. If you could hear me, I'm grinning because...
Yeah, go fuck yourself. There it is.
See, there it is. I did it. It is done. No, it's one of those movies where I remember watching it and I remember liking it a lot, and then when I remember they, last year they announced... Maybe it was this year. It feels honestly like they announced everything for Creepshow this year and it just happened to appear on Shudder. When they announced everything, I was like, well, this could be another interesting addition into what is seemingly a growing amount of these anthology TV series. I mean, Black Mirror, Twilight Zone, Reboot, which is fucking trash of the highest order. So I'm talking about things that are trash. The Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt at one point was going to be rebooted. It ended up not getting rebooted. Fingers crossed it doesn't get rebooted. But that's for personal reasons because I just don't see that turning out well. But
you just don't want to have to keep doing this podcast.
No. We're going to keep doing this podcast once we're done with Tales from the Crypt. It's more of, I know what Tales from the Crypt in 2019 looks like, and it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
So, So I remember liking the movie, but I don't have like a very nostalgic angle to come at this with. So it's just like, I remember I liked the movie. It was something I had watched at one point. It's not one of those movies that I have like any distaste towards, but it's just one of those movies that I haven't seen it enough to have an opinion on. However, I did rewatch it before we did this episode so that I could give myself a better idea of to kind of what I was getting myself into talking about the TV series. And obviously I liked it a lot. It's fantastic. So I have seen it twice, once prior to this, once for this. It's great. It's fantastic. All the stories are good. And like you mentioned, Mike, it has a little bit of each of the things. It's not just a monster story all throughout. It's a monster story and a love triangle story and kind of a really weird Stephen King story, like with him in it. So before we talk about the TV show, I would suggest you go out and watch the movie to kind of give yourself the mind frame of what this show is going to be. But let's not kid ourselves. It's very close to Tales from the Crypt.
It's pretty
Which
close
is
to
the
Tales
TV series or this?
Creepshow, the movie, and the TV series is pretty close to Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's his source inspiration. So
right.
It would be a failure if it wasn't.
So we're going to talk about the first episode of Creepshow. That episode is broken into two segments, Gray Matter and The House of the Head. So the first segment, Gray Matter, is directed by Greg Nicotero. It is based off of a Stephen King short story out of, I believe, I'm probably going to get this wrong. Is it out of Night Shift? I think it is.
It is. It is out of Night Shift.
And this episode with these two segments aired on September 26th, 2019. Like I mentioned, it is directed by Greg Nicotero. Greg Nicotero is the producer. I guess he's also the showrunner for the show, it would seem. His name and branding is kind of all over everything you'll go and read about the show. The episode stars Adrienne Barbeau, Tobin Bell, Jesse C. Boyd, and Giancarlo Esposito. Yes, Adrienne Barbeau was in the original Creepshow movie, which is a fantastic little callback. No, she is not given anything to do in this episode segment, which is unfortunate. So, Jess, what did you think of this first segment of the first episode of the Creepshow reboot?
Let's just say we'll be happier when we get to the second one. But this one, I don't know. I have read the story. It's been a long time since I've read Night Shift. But I remember this not being really a story that I was particularly fond of to begin with. Merely because there's really nothing happening. It's really just, at least, especially in the show version, you're just being told about some events that happen right up to where we're at now. Which is really boring for something that's supposed to be like a show or a movie. You need to be watching them doing things. This is also, I don't know, it felt really like Greg Nicotero was like, here, this is a Stephen King thing. And I'm going to try and make it feel as Stephen King-like as I possibly can. But somehow I'm going to like just zap all of the character and charm out of the actual characters. Because like you said, Chris, Adrienne Barbeau and pretty much Tobin Bell, everybody else, has virtually nothing to do in this story, aside from the kid who's telling the story about his dad who's an alcoholic and has, now transformed into some sort of being because of his alcoholism. And Tobin Bell and Esposito are just on their way to go find the creature. Basically, you're just waiting for the gag at the end of it, is what you're doing this entire time. There's no story, there's nothing interesting really happening to push it along. You just know where we're going, and you're waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think, Father Malone, but I think we've said this before, Mike. It's weird that they led with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we say that at the beginning of every season of Tales from the Crypt.
We sure do, don't we? Including season 4, which we just started on.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I mean, look, it's clear, as Jess said, it's like, let's lead with a Stephen King story because he did Creepshow and he's got the cachet, and we'll let people know we're not fucking around. We're being more reverential to the series than recently has been done. unfortunately, they led with one of his most clumsy stories. You know, King has a thread through most of his short fiction and his, massive novels about dealing with alcoholism. This is, in my mind, just a clumsy metaphor for alcoholism, where it actually turns you into a massive, slimy goo, which was all that happened in the original short story. They go kind of crazy here with the potential of this particular malady would entail. But as you said, it's a lot of people talking, just sitting around and telling stories, which is fine if we get to have our characters be more participatory, which they're not. You said it is, in fact, everyone just kind of reacting to what has already happened or is happening currently. I think they thought they were being more clever than they were with the cross-cutting of the original story being told with the guys on their own investigating it. I don't think it's like a 100% misfire. I think it's better than a lot of sort of anthology shows we've gotten recently. Certainly better than anything in Creepshow 3. Probably better than a couple of stories in Creepshow 2. However, what I do want to praise is I did like the fact that it's clearly a period piece. It seems as if it takes place in like 1972 or something like that, which was an odd choice, but
well, judging from the beer cans, it must have been.
Yeah, I mean, they got the pull tabs on them.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that. I think it's really shot very well. We always complain about Tales from the Crypt, like, you're in trouble when they're clearly standing on a set that was, the paint is still drying. This looked good. I mean, there's some shots in this where it's completely lit by flashlight. I thought that was all really good. I thought it built up a little bit of suspense here and there. All the performances are good. As you said, Adrienne Barbeau, I was so happy to see her name in the credits, but not given much to do at all. I don't know. It's okay. What did you think, Chris? But before we get to the second segment, we got to talk about the opening of this thing.
Whoa! I was going to say, before we get to the second segment, dog, I haven't even gotten to say anything. What?
I no. I'm saying.
No. I'm just kidding.
Let's finish this off, but we got to talk about the whole thing because we leapt right into the first story.
Well, the thing about this is I came to this podcast to fight you guys about how much I liked the first segment, and the more I thought about it,
and then we changed your mind.
No. So here's the thing. Y'all changed my mind, but also the thing about this segment is just watching it again should change your mind. It is not great. Honestly, it's kind of disappointing because you have Creepshow, the name, which has some weight to it. You have Greg Nicotero, who clearly loves the source material, who is a fantastically talented effects man. Clearly knows what he's doing behind the camera. He's a Walking Dead guru, according to some clickbait articles. Go fuck yourself, Screen Rant or whatever bullshit website put that. And I was like Polygon and CNN. Like, God, because Walking Dead is important in 2019. Mm-hmm. Newsflash, it's fucking not. So you've got all these things that should be good. You've got a Stephen King source material that's okay. You know what it strikes me of, Mike? It almost reminds me of how clumsy Kentucky Rye was with its message.
Yeah.
It's like you're not teaching anyone anything about alcoholism by being like, if you drink alcohol, you might actually accidentally get like a mutanogen in your beer and become a monster. Like, what the fuck? Okay. So, it's very much a story about alcoholism and how it affects people's lives. And then you have, like you said, Tobin Bell, who we were talking about this before we started podcasting. Jigsaw, he's like the best part of some of those later Jigsaw movies. Giancarlo Esposito, who, look, I know I'm not a big fan of Breaking Bad. Go ahead and fucking tie me to a stump and kill me.
I think it's just okay.
Yes, exactly. So tie us both to a stump and throw us over Niagara Falls or whatever you do to heretics.
Pretty much.
I'm going to, because you're both wrong. That's a great show.
That's fine. We're allowed to be wrong. That's what makes us. I
actually think Better Call Saul is better, but that's neither here nor there.
I do want to say with this segment, I think that like what Chris, you said, intercutting or talking about intercutting like the stories back and forth. I think that honestly, they might have thought that it was helping, but I think it exposed a problem that I have with this series as it is right now, and that these episodes are really short. And I feel like them cutting back and forth kind of eliminated any option they had to really, like, get time to know any of these characters, because we're just running back. I mean, Giancarlo Esposito and Tobin Bell are basically just yelling, like, repeated phrases over and over again because they're looking for this guy. And that's the majority of their character. Adrienne Barbeau is doing the same thing pretty much, just saying, oh, honey, that's terrible. Oh, no, that's terrible. Like, it's just...
And then what happened?
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of feel like this story could have been maybe, like, if it were a movie setting, like if this were a movie structure, it could have potentially been a wraparound where you're going back to, like, them still telling the story and getting a few things. That way, I don't know, like, just structurally how it's set up, it just feels more like it's beats instead of anything else. It's just, meh. But go ahead, Chris, I cut you off.
No, you didn't cut me off. So like you've mentioned, I mean, it is cutting back between these two stories. You have Jesse C. Boyd playing the father who's becoming, more of a drunkard and then becoming a actual fucking House of the Dead monster, because
oh my God,
that is what it looks like.
Great.
It looks like the CGI is so bad. It looks like a character you would fight.
It's not that bad.
It's pretty bad. It looks like a character you would fight in the House of the Dead arcade game. Like, I'm pretty sure I saw that in there at one point. It's so weird. It's amorphous, and I know that it's like, oh, it's splitting, and it's going to take over the world. Like, who gives a shit? Like, that ending has no stakes for anything. That doesn't matter. That feels tacked on.
I mean, honestly, it only feels like they're like the only 5 people that live in this universe anyway.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't feel like a fully fleshed out universe.
No.
Yeah, I don't even know where that came from. Like suddenly it's taken over the world. Like,
well, that is from the story. And the problem is I know, this story was adapted by Byron Williger and Philip de Blasi it was, the teleplay is by them. Why they chose to include that is so strange to me, because that is wholly unnecessary in the grand scheme of the story they're trying to tell. And it doesn't do anything for the story. It doesn't do anything for the stakes. And ultimately, the biggest disappointment that I have with this episode is the fact that you have Adrienne Barbeau, Tobin Bell, and Giancarlo Esposito in the same room together, and they do fuck all of nothing. And that's the biggest disappointment here. Really is. If we don't even like the source material, what does it matter?
What could have worked is if these had been the last 5 people on Earth, and the kid shows up and he's like, oh, I know how all this started. It started with me, and then the fucking creatures wiped them out. Like, at least then it would have been something interesting, but it just feels so out of left field.
Because it's like they're in the middle of a storm or something, right? And that's why everybody's out of town.
It reminds me of that also reminds me of the X-Files episode, Aguamala, the one with Darren McGavin, where they're in the apartment complex and there's like monsters in the toilets, which, by the way, that episode fucking sucks. And so...
Oh, it's terrible.
It's not reminding me of things that are good, because that episode of Twilight Zone 1985 also sucks. So... It's a really weird thing to lead with when this
It really just feels like they led with it because it has Adrienne... Because they packed it with the cast, and it's a Stephen King story. And it's here's the Creepshow brand, boom. But
here's Nicotero doing monsters and gross effects.
Right.
Okay, who cares?
The effects are good, though. They are good. I mean, I'm talking about the practical effects. They do look kind of creepy.
Yeah, the practical stuff is awesome.
When it first kind of goes from practical to CG, I thought that was really skillful. After that, clearly it's whatever. But there was a moment where it was like, where I did not recognize whether it was CG or practical. And anytime you can do that in this day and age, I'm all for it. Does it lead anywhere?
I would agree.
No, but there was one moment where I was like, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, it's like right when they're showing the light on it and it moves in a certain way, and I was like, is that okay?
The moment that I thought was the best moment of the entire episode is when he comes in and he sees his dad underneath the sheet, and that was thoroughly disgusting, thoroughly chilling, really upsetting. He's like a fucking monster underneath the sheet, and it's like the sheet's gooey and like wet and shit. Like that, I'm there for that. But everything else, nah, I'm good. And also the comic book transitions Oh boy, just stop. Don't do them. We get it. It's supposed to be a comic book. But the Tales from the Crypt never did that. So why are you
The movie did, though. The movie does do that, and I agree with you in this segment that I don't think they work, because I think it's strange that, like, the actors just seem to be anticipating the transition sometimes, and I don't think it works in this segment. I do think it works in the next segment, though, but yeah, that comic book that's how we get from one story to one story pretty much in Creepshow, is you're following within the comic book.
Right. I don't mind the transitions from end of story to beginning of story. The problem is when they do them sort of mid-story, whereas Romero was able to do it so artfully that, like, there are times where you don't even recognize it's happening.
That's fair.
But Nicotero is not George Romero.
Well, and here's the thing. So if we didn't like it, and if we didn't like the comic book transitions in this one, and we didn't like it in the next one, I don't think we liked them. Does that track? I mean, that's the problem.
I mean, I get what you guys mean as far as them being, like, in the middle of it, like you're going from scene to scene as a transition, which is weird. I do think it also takes away the limited time you have. But I like them at the end and at the beginning. But I could do without them in the middle for sure.
Well, I'm 100% beginning and if they're done well and almost subliminally in the middle, then that's fine as well. Right. I mean, it's hard to throw in a transition that's splashy anymore without people, like, finding it jarring, because nobody does anything like that anymore. But, like, even a wipe these days, it's like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. I don't know. I mean, again, I like it as the wraparounds, but then again, of course, why wouldn't you? It has the creep. Almost said the creeper, which is not the name of the character. Before we talk about the next segment, The House of the Head, I feel like I should let Father Malone take a moment to tell you his feelings on the newly revamped Creep.
Yes, indeed. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's not good. It's real bad.
I mean,
are you kidding? A puppet. It looks like a puppet.
Oh,
with a person's head.
It is a puppet.
With a person's hand in it. Boy, I've seen Elmo. Elmo has better puppetry than this thing.
I wish it was a Muppet. I wish they had gone that cartoony. I mean, look, when it's not gesticulating, it seems okay to me. And I don't hate the design of it because it's obviously based on the original. But, look, if you go watch the original Creepshow film, the creep, as he is, like, physically, appears only in, like, 2 or 3 shots at the very beginning when he's hovering outside Joe King or Joe Hill's bedroom window. That particular one was made, they took a real skeleton and then they just built up around it and they articulated it only a little bit so its eyes would move, its arm would move, and its mouth would open. And look, man, that was 1982, like 37 years ago. Like, that thing still looks great to me. And the fact is, they don't really require this new creep to do anything more than the original did. So why not just do exactly what they did before? Make that guy. Because what we're getting now, he's not talking. He's just kind of grunting and giggling a little bit.
I don't hate it as much as you guys do. I like that it's a puppet. I enjoy that. But it's too Walking Dead zombie-like for me. Like, it's the sounds that it makes, the way it moves, all of that, and it just feels like it's like, okay, so it feels like somebody said, hey, the Walking Dead zombie thing, like, we need to get that in here somehow. Can we make it the creep? Which that's my main gripe. I like the puppet. I think it does look good. I do agree. I think we said this maybe off air. I agree with you, Mike, that the mouth is really dry.
Yeah, like way too dry. Come on, man. Just fucking spritz it a little. Yeah,
just a little moisture would be nice.
I agree with you, Jess. It looks just... it's the Walking Dead guru in all of us. It is the Walking Dead. It looks like a Walking Dead zombie in a wig.
Like, it looks.
I will say this.
No, I don't know if they still do it in Walking Dead because I haven't watched that show in seasons, but when they would try and throw in a reference zombie, like, hey, did you see the zombie that looked like blah, blah, blah? It seems like that's like, hey, did you see the zombie that looked like the creep from Creepshow?
Yeah, they actually did one. I mean, I
maybe
like
it's the
you.
Same one.
I haven't watched the series in, like, ever. But, it'll pop up in, like, my news feed sometimes, like, tonight on Walking Dead, they made a reference to the Dawn of the Dead zombie. Like, okay, great. They made a reference to Bub. Like, okay, good. The one thing I do like about this creep is that he continues not to talk. I thought that was a really good choice on their part. I like that he's just sort of fucking weird and going like, and just like pointing to the comic, like, this is the deal. Like, you don't need to hear anything from me. Like, even though in the sort of introductory panels, you'll see that he is introducing it vocally. The puppet itself never actually speaks. Oh, and, speaking of the transitions in and out, doubling back just for a second, the one for the first story for Gray Matter, that went on way too long.
I would agree.
Where they did the whole first page, it was just like, and you're hearing it and seeing it at the same time. It's like, just fucking get us in there. Like, at least with the original Creepshow movie, you'd come to the one panel and then just go into it. They weren't giving us fucking 6 pages of dialogue while we're hearing the dialogue. It's like, come on, man. It's a visual medium. Just get in there. It's a moving picture. Anyway.
Show, don't tell.
Yeah, man.
That is the overall.
Oh, no, I'm not done.
Of Gray Matter.
Oh, God. This man's not finished.
No. Listen, the other thing is, I actually liked the credit sequence, the sort of all of the different sort of comic book images like appearing on the creep, even as CG as he is. Like, I liked that. The one thing that I miss more than anything, and I missed it in Creepshow 2 as well, is John Harrison's original score from Creepshow. Now, I'm sure that's a Warner Brothers thing, and they own the rights to it and probably couldn't get it, but that theme is one of, if not, well, definitely my favorite horror theme of all time. It's serious enough that you can take it as a straight horror movie, and it's sort of tongue-in-cheek enough that you can get into it as a comic booky thing. I think that score is absolutely brilliant. The score we got now, I couldn't even hum it to you right now.
Yeah, I have no idea what it was.
Yeah, I watched it a couple of times. In fact, I watched the credit sequence more than that because, as I said, I did like the visuals, but I couldn't hum a bar.
Yeah, and I mean, even if we couldn't have had the original score, which I get, I totally understand that. There could have just been a little more effort put in behind that. Just something more consistent. It just
Get
all
on
very
it, Guru.
Standard orchestral. Yeah, well, Walking Dead Guru, not composer of music Guru.
The crazy thing is, the director of the second segment is John Harrison, who composed the fucking music for the first film. Oh,
yeah.
So let's get to that segment, The House of the Head. So like Mike mentioned, or Father Malone, whatever his nom de plume
I'm Father Malone,
today.
brother.
Okay, sorry, Hulk Hogan.
Brother. Yeah.
Brother. The House of the Head is directed by John Harrison, written by Josh Malerman. Now, Josh Malerman's name might sound familiar to you if you jumped on the Bird Box bandwagon of 2019, which...
I mean, I saw it.
Well, I'm not talking more about seeing it and more being like, this is the scariest shit. Like, no. Nah.
Not even close.
I don't
Yeah,
think
that's
so.
all part and parcel with the society we live in now, where everything has to be the best or the worst.
Yes, if you're not breaking a record or making something that's never been made before, you're evidently making a failure. But
exactly. Midsummer, the craziest, scariest movie you've ever seen. No. Sure, whatever, internet, whatever clickbait media, whatever Walking Dead gurus. So The House of the Head is directed by, like Mike mentioned, Josh Harrison, who was the assistant director on Creepshow, the original. What did I say?
Yeah, and...
You said Josh.
You said Josh.
Oh, John Harrison. Josh Malerman is the one who wrote it.
Yeah.
Sure.
And he's a good director, John Harrison. He did a whole bunch of Tales from the Dark Side episodes, which was Romero's sort of follow-up to Creepshow on television. He directed, in fact, the Tales from the Dark Side movie, which I like a lot. He did that Dune miniseries way back then. I think he's a really good filmmaker. That's all.
No, I would totally agree. I think that the Tales from the Dark Side movie is better than a lot of episodes of Tales from the Dark Side, but I think that he's a fantastic director and composer, obviously.
I didn't like this segment.
Okay, you're wrong.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'm allowed to be wrong. You know why I didn't like it? Because
you hate children.
That's, fine. You're not wrong. No, I didn't like it because there were no stakes, and it was just, it was played for laughs the entire way through.
Okay, I thought there were tons of stakes, and I did not. I was expecting, even though this didn't pay off, like, I felt You know what? Forget the family. Forget the actual living family in this story. Why this one affected me as much as it did, and why I'm going to go toe-to-toe with you on this, is that it made me care about little figurines in a dollhouse. I was actually worried about them. That, to me, is as good as anything you're going to get on TV. Like, suddenly I'm invested in whether or not this fucking piece of plastic husband and wife are in danger from this a head. It's just a head. But, like, I don't know, man. I thought this was great. Like, this is as good as not any of the stories in Creepshow, but you could have put this in the original Creepshow. I would have been perfectly happy with it. I'm not gaga over the ending of this particular one, but I thought it was actually suspenseful, and I thought that little kid was great in it. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, talking about John Harrison, like, as a director, like, the fact that he was able to shoot these miniatures in such a way, and not only just the transitions from in and out from the sort of miniature world to our world and back, but, like, the fact that he kept me, like, hoping that these little figures were going to be okay. I think this one's a win. Yeah,
I agree completely. I really, when I watched Grey Matter, because my hopes were not, astronomical for this show, but I was excited for it. I wanted it to be good. I want it to do well. And when Grey Matter happened, I'm like, it's like you said, it's not entire misfire. Okay, fine. Working out the bugs. This happened. This next segment happened. And I was, like you said, immediately in. And for me, the reason I liked this one so much was that, A, we get a couple Creepshow references that I think were done well, which we get a little nod to the ashtray in the miniature house. And I think maybe, I can't be for sure, but I think maybe the Native American figurine she ends up getting is Old Chief Woodenhead from the second one.
Oh, it 100% is.
Yes, I thought so for sure. But that aside, I think that's fan service done well. Sidebar, but the main reason
the crate
that
was
I
in
like
the
this,
attic.
Yes, yeah, oh yeah, that's true. The main reason I really liked this is because it's a story from a perspective that you don't often get to see, and that is a perspective that children have complex inner lives that they're dealing with all the time, that parents are entirely, adults and parents are entirely oblivious to and or don't take seriously because you are a child. And I think that, we don't see that a lot in stories having to deal with children. If they're in there, they're usually just very two-dimensional. You don't get to know anything about them. They're either cute or bratty or not. They figure some kind of trope. This little girl was fantastic. And yeah, like, I cared about the figurines. I wanted to know what was going on. And for me, I thought maybe that, like, once she pulled the head out of the dollhouse, that some of the stuff would start happening within her own home. That doesn't happen.
I was expecting that too.
That doesn't happen. I do I like the ending just for like I said, just inner complex life of this child where she's like, nope, get that the fuck away from me. Like, I'm good. We're done. I don't need to deal with it. I handled it. It's cool. And yeah, no, I just love the miniatures. I like seeing that. I like that in movies. I liked it in Hereditary as just a set piece. I just find it engaging when I see it. And where the first story, I think, made a mistake of not being contained enough where it kept trying to jump back and forth, therefore diminishing a lot of its already short runtime. I think this one managed to pull that off a lot better, and that's because we're dealing with slightly fewer characters. I mean, we're really just focusing on the little girl. Her parents are there, but they're just kind of oblivious parents. And you are pretty much just with her in her bedroom going back to this house and trying to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to help this little family? What am I going to do? I'm responsible for them. How do I make this happen? And I didn't need an explanation for the head. I liked the way that I'm like, okay, fine. It's just there. The Smiths are haunted. That's totally cool. Christopher.
Oh, boy. Again, I'm not willing to die on this hill, so I don't care that much. It was okay. I mean, it's just whatever. Again, it just, to me, was just, there were no stakes. There's a head in a dollhouse. it ends up not doing anything of substantive value outside of the kid's life. Like you mentioned, Jess, it is interesting to see a story being told, from a point of view we're not used to, but that's fine. It's just, there wasn't, like, I wouldn't say either one of these segments were very good. I would say this is better than Gray Matter, because this is less formulaic than Gray Matter, but at the same time, I mean, I'm not going to go back and revisit this one either. And I just thought it was okay. It's just okay. It's not that great. And the ending is really weird. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. Almost feels like they ran out of time.
Exactly. Again, that's my biggest complaint with the show overall right now is that I don't know why these segments are so short. I don't know why they didn't, even like a cool 30 minutes each would be nice, but like 22 minutes, 23 minutes, I don't know. You're sacrificing a lot.
You know what it feels like? It feels like Werewolf.
It does feel like Werewolf. That's what I thought when I was watching. I'm like, except at least, the creep isn't running from town to town.
I mean, it might as well be. He's running
hiding
from
the
story
comic
to
book
story.
police.
Yeah, but they don't give the stories enough time to breathe. And honestly, what I don't know is why they didn't do 30 minutes. Why they didn't just do one story an episode? Because
they could have easily done an hour on this last one.
And I mean, Creepshow as a movie and an anthology movie is pretty long. And there's a lot of stories in the first Creepshow. I think, there's 5? And that's...
5 stories, yeah, and it's exactly 2 hours, the film.
Right. And that's pretty long for an anthology film. I think most of them come in around an hour and a half-ish.
Yeah, usually.
And there's not usually that many stories. It's usually like 3 longer ones or 4.
Tales is 27 minutes.
Yeah, and I don't know. That's the only one that I think has been able to nail this kind of runtime. So, well, I mean, I guess that's not true. Twilight Zone original was only 20-some minutes. Again, you got to be working with the right kind of story.
Yeah, I don't think the last story necessarily needed more time. It just needed a stronger ending. It just kind of like the thing is, we were supposed to kind of be shocked by seeing the little kid's thing with the head on again. Whereas I would have been totally satisfied had the woman just looked into that house and saw the family back and then looked over and saw the head. Like, this is going to happen again. Something like that.
Right.
Or if they would, like, when the little girl finds the actual, like, human-sized head under her thing, if we had just cut away and gone to, like, some yard sale where now when the person looks in the house, it's clearly her family are the miniatures and there's the head. Something, like...
I was expecting a twist, something. There was nothing. It was just like, and now it's gone.
And I'm totally fine with no twist. Like, she was just like, okay, well, now we need to get rid of this dollhouse. Like, there's nothing else we can do. It's haunted and whatever. And then that be the end. And just, that's it. But, like, don't try and give us a shock at the very end when there is no shock to be had.
Right.
I thought that was...
It felt tacked on.
Yeah, it was clumsy at the end there. But having said that, everything leading up to that, I thoroughly enjoyed in this one. I thought, it's as sort of out there as throwing in the Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill in the original Creepshow. Like, that, to me, feels very EC. Like, not everything has to be a revenge story or,
a love triangle.
Or a love triangle or a comeuppance. Like, I don't necessarily need that. Sometimes horrible shit just happens, and here it is. Yeah. And I thought that was in keeping with the Creepshow tradition. So... if they're going to produce more stories like this one, as weird as it is, I'm on board. Clearly, we're going to be watching the rest of them anyway. But even if we weren't doing this, I would definitely be tuning in for the next episode.
Agreed. I kind of liked it, like, the whole time. Every time she closed up the dollhouse, I like to imagine it was just chaos in there. Like, it's just, she closes it, and the whole house just goes insane. All the little figurines running around.
I know, yeah, and I'm glad we never see them moving. Like, it's just like, oh, wait, and now they're here.
I was hoping for something out of the Indian in the cupboard.
Yeah, it was definitely... I had those vibes.
But the other thing I liked about it, like, in this sort of speaking to what you were saying, Jess, about, kids do have an amazing inner life that we do not give them credit for. This child is not just like an observer of what's going on. She's actually trying to solve their problem. Like, not only does she go, like, she goes and gets a cop, first of all, thinking like, well, the cop will be able to solve it. Oh, okay. A real world solution is not the answer for these people. We need to find some sort of mysticism.
Something spiritual.
Yeah, and okay, the guy tells me an old Indian's going to fix the problem. We'll put him in there too. Oh, nope, that doesn't work either. I guess there's nothing I can do. I really liked it. And they did a moment too where the family is together, like watching TV, and the parents have fallen asleep, and she wakes up. Like, I think I don't know that I experienced that as a child, but I remember moments like that where it feels like you're all alone in the world, like nothing can help you. Even if your parents are present and in the room with you, sometimes you feel so isolated. And I think that this particular story sort of tapped into that, and I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that actress is fantastic. It's not often that you get child actors who can like emote and have that sort of range, but I liked her a lot. And
yeah, I don't know that the episode would have been as successful without her. Because, like, look, in Gray Matter, they have an older kid playing as active, if not more, role, and that kid was terrible. I did not like him at all.
Very just flat.
Yeah.
And
sure.
Chris.
Oh, shut up.
Hey, whatever, man. Like I said, you're entitled to your opinion. And I'm not even saying your opinion's wrong. You're entitled to it.
Well, that's because it isn't.
It resonated with you in a way that it didn't resonate with me. Go fuck yourself.
2-on-1, baby. Welcome to the podcast, Jess.
Give me a 2x4 and a nail, and I'll smash it into my own forehead. Thank you very much. Jeez. So, on the next Creepshow bonus episode, we're going to be taking a look at the second episode, which is broken into two segments: Lydia Lane's Better Half and The Man in the Suitcase. And The Man in the Suitcase, I am super excited. Have you guys read the synopsis for it? It sounds insane. A college student brings the wrong bag home from the airport only to find a pretzeled man inside, afflicted by a strange condition that turns his pain into gold. That sounds fucking insane.
Yeehaw.
Sounds better than some bullshit haunted dollhouse.
Did you guys watch any of the Channel Zero seasons?
No, that's something I need to look into. I've been told to watch it.
A, they're fantastic, but B, I think it's the third season has you said Pretzel Man, and I hope that it's probably not the same actor, but I would be really, really happy if it was, who played this similar sort of, he's just like a contortionist in the show. His character moves in all these really weird ways. But if you haven't seen that, that's another good anthology show, as opposed to different stories each episode. It's just different stories each season. But highly recommended.
What a niche role this guy has found if he's in this episode.
Right.
I'm excited. Pretzel Man. A pretzel man. I wonder if his character's going to be, his character's name is going to be R. Gold. Get it? Rolled gold?
Dun-dun.
I crack myself up with my stupid
Comedy with a K,
jokes.
baby.
Comedy with a K. Oh, God. So until then, where can people find you, Jess?
You can find me on Twitter at writer Jess Byard. You can also find me on our podcast, Chris, the one-season show, where we cover shows that only lasted one season, and we are halfway through 1987's Werewolf. So it's October. It's werewolf season. Check it out.
Where can people find you, Father Mal173?
You can find me, Father Malone, at my YouTube channel, Odd5 Films. I got 2 shows on there you've never seen about movies and such. And I've got a new show called Unaired Pilots, which is actually written and directed by Father Malone himself. I don't actually know the guy. You can also hear me on another podcast I do with you, Chris, called Dreams for Sale, the Twilight Zone 85 podcast, which we do with our good friend, Mr. Mike White.
And as for me, the contrarian on this podcast, which happens very infrequently, it feels like, more frequently on Chronicles than anything else. You can find me on Twitter at Casualty_Chris. I do the Culture Cast once to twice a week, talk about movies. Sometimes Father Malone is there, sometimes Jess is there. Who knows? Check it out. See who's there. Also, I do a podcast with Mike White called the Kolchak Tapes, where we talk about Kolchak the Night Stalker. And you can find that one over at kolchaktapes.com. Big thanks, as always, to Mr. John Kassir for the intro-outro to Chronicles from the Crypt, and to you, Jess, because you're joining us for this 6-episode Bono episodo fun menagerie. I don't know where I was going with that.
Funtimo.
Funtimo. Bono episodo Funtimo. That's a good one. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next episode.